Welcome to Paranormal Nightshift, your home for all things that go bump in the dark and your fan stories told here. Abandoned buildings. It's hard to believe that somebody would just pack up and leave, especially in this day and age. Where do they go? Why would you just leave your house? It doesn't make any sense to a lot of us, but what if you had to? And what is so alluring about an abandoned building? Today's story comes from Lily in Winnipeg. There was woods behind my house growing up, and I absolutely loved it. It was just gorgeous. Nothing but Canadian wilderness. So fun as a kid. Times were different back then. You didn't have iPads and you didn't have video games. You just went outside. That's what you did. Kids would be gone most of the day playing in the woods, and you knew that you had to be back home before the lights went out. The woods behind my house went on for what felt like forever. I was lucky enough to have horses growing up, so I would always ride. It was never a big deal, like for me just to go ride. I'd ride 2 or 3 hours and then stop and ride 2 or 3 hours back. It was what we did for fun. I was riding in a direction that I hadn't ridden before, just passing more and more wilderness, and then I saw this house. Old, abandoned house. The windows were smashed in, the door was wide open, but something drew me to it. I wanted to stop. I was a curious kid. I wanted to check it out, you know? The house was dusty inside. Nobody had been in here for years. There were things torn apart everywhere, and something had clearly lived in there. But I didn't see anything out of place. It didn't seem disinviting, just scary, like an old house would be. There were still pictures on the mantle. There were still dishes in the sink. Why would somebody just leave? And how come I had never seen this house before? I explored for a couple minutes, room for room, and every room was the same thing. Still sheets on the bed, still clothes in the closet. There was a fireplace in the living room, and it just drew me to it. As I looked at all the pictures of this family on the mantle, that's when everything took a very dark turn. Something asking me, "What are you doing here?" I turned around, startled. I'm sorry. I didn't know anybody lived here. I'm so sorry." But there was no one there. I heard it again. "What are you doing here?" Again. I had been through the whole house. There was nobody here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I'll leave now." Then it got louder. It became more aggressive. "Get out! Get out!" it said. I got on my horse and I rode, but my logic took over. I just broke into somebody's house. That's what happened. I just broke into somebody's house. I'm going to go to jail. They're going to call the cops on me. You don't do this. People don't do this. What was I thinking? But then I started thinking more. Why was the house like that? Maybe he wasn't supposed to be there. I rode home and I told my mom and dad about what happened that day. They were mad at me for going into the house, but my father was a very curious man as well. Nobody's lived in those houses for years. Nobody's lived down there for years. We need to ride down there and make sure that nobody's who's not supposed to be there is living there. We rode down there the next day. I love my father for that. He always believed in my curiosity. We rode back down there the next day, and we saw that the door was the same way. The windows were the same way. My father went to the front door and knocked. "Is anybody here? Anyone here? No one's supposed to be here. I need to talk to you." My father and I walked around in the house just like I had done the day before. We explored everything, but again, drawn to the fireplace. It just seemed so weird. There's still pictures here. There's everybody. It still felt like somebody should be here. Who would leave their stuff? Why would you leave all your stuff? Why would you let the windows be broken in and the door swinging off the hinges? Why? None of this made any sense to me and my father. We started to hear footsteps from the other rooms that we had already been in. We knew nobody was in the house. We'd searched everything. My father had a feeling. He walked into the other room, holding my hand, and that's when we saw it. 2 red glowing eyes. The 2 red glowing eyes looked at us and moved from across the room at a pace that no human could have moved. It yelled at us, "Get out!" And we did. My father and I both ran as quickly as we could. My father and I made a pact never to go back to that house again. That house is still standing there on the property. Nobody knows what it is, but it has gained the reputation as the haunted house. Teenage kids go in there all the time now. How does a house become haunted? There is no backstory. We don't know. I don't want to go and grab pictures off of the mantle, but I want to know who these people were and what's their story.